Hi, thanks again for listening to the YouTube channel. We've talked last couple of weeks about businesses, different types of businesses. We talked first about LLC, then we talked about corporation. Now I want to talk about sole proprietor. A lot of times, I did that intentionally. A lot of times you find people always talk about sole proprietor first, then LLCs, then corporations. You'd be like, well, why did you do that intentionally? Switch that around. Because, I think it's very important that people understand what each business is so they can make a wise choice as far as what works for them. And a lot of times the easiest route, like if you talk to somebody, sometimes they give you the easiest route, right? And they might not know how to explain, thoroughly or correctly, or the ins and outs to give you, like a good explanation of why each entity works for you or each different business structure will work for you. So we're ending, like I said, LLCs we talked about corporation, now we're talking about sole proprietor, right? So the sole proprietor, a lot of times people is the first thing, you're like, you know what, I want to open this janitorial company, thinking about opening this landscape company, any kind of company, right? And let's say you got a full-time job, you just want to start part-time. So you go talk to somebody, a lot of times they're like, hey, all you can do is sole proprietor, it's easy, put on your social. So what does that mean? So yes, you can do it, and that shit can be done. You go, it's simply, say you want to open, example, no need to register at all with SEC because you're not opening a limited liability company, LLC, you're not opening a corporation. You can go to the county where you need proper licensing, and actually, depending on what the business is, right? For this case, we could say janitorial. You go to the county, you have to now ultimately register with the county or the state the fictitious name, right? The name you want to use, because I'm pretty much sure you wouldn't want to just use your name, right? So you register a fictitious name under your name, get that certificate, then you go to the county, apply for the licenses, and instead of an EIN, you're naturally going to give them your social. So, say you're out there looking for work, right? And then you get an apartment complex. You're going to get insurance as well, everything under your name and social, and also that DBA name, right? Bank account as well. And then insurance and then the contract. So when they pay you, they're going to pay you under your social. Okay, so when you do taxes at the end of the year, you're going to ultimately fill out a Schedule C, which is going to have the income and expenses. And then the net is also going to be carried over, similar to LLC, and you're going to report and pay taxes on that money on your personal income taxes. Okay, so ultimately, a sole proprietor means you are the business owner. Okay, you as an individual, whether you have a social security number or you have a tax ID, you're using that number. You did not apply for an EIN. Now, good question. How do you know that's a question? Sometimes people, with a sole proprietor, you can also apply for an EIN. Some people don't know that. You can apply for an EIN, and I've seen that throughout the years as well, but some people want to do that. But ultimately, the sole proprietor, like I said, is under your social, or your tax ID. Now, I'm talking about this one last because this is one that most people start with. So when you're starting off, you're like, I don't know how my business is going to go, let me start off this way. Well, a lot of times that limits what you can do afterwards. So me personally, that's why I recommend you take your time and really analyze, talk to your financial advisor, your accountant, lawyer, what works for you. Because if you start as a sole proprietor or sole prop, what we call it in the industry, you limit yourself. And I say that because you can't later change that to an LLC. You can't change that to a corporation. Whereas if you start, you can close that business and that license and open a whole nother business and form the LLC with the state or the corporation, C Corp, S Corp with the state. So that's why it's good to sit down with somebody from the start, because let's say that somebody offered you this amazing opportunity and you just know that this is going to take off, right? And you're like, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it quick. So you open a sole proprietor, next thing you know, you make the first year over $500,000. You're like, oh shoot, I'm in another tax bracket. And you sit down with someone like, well, you should form a corporation. What do you got to do? You're going to have to form a corporation, transfer licenses, insurance, pretty much start from scratch, right? Whereas if you would sit down with somebody, a professional, whether it's your financial advisor, accountant, lawyer, whatever it may be, and sit down from the start and say, look, this is what I'm thinking, this is the opportunity I have, knock on wood, I'm going to do good. And then it can recommend and you can make a good decision about either LLC, C Corp, or S Corp. Keep it in mind, that, as we talked about earlier with the LLC, even if you start with an LLC, you still have the option of doing your taxes at first as a sole proprietor, right? Then if you see that it's going good, you can apply under the LLC for 8832 and a classification change, okay? Change that classification as a corporation. Now what happens? You don't have to start all over. You don't have to get new business licenses. You don't have to get new EIN. You don't have to open another corporate LLC with the state. If you had any contractor licenses, whatever it may be, you don't have to reapply because they already had that under that EIN. Okay? So you see the difference? So it's always good to be like, that's why I talked about this one last, not to just, hey, I need this fast, let's just do it. No, like really thoroughly research things and know like, okay, yeah, maybe opportunity came, you got to get on it quick. But you have to do the research to figure out what's going to have long-term effects, right? So like I said, if you open a sole proprietor, you got all the license under your social, everything. Next thing you know, bam, I'm making $500,000, projected to make gross naturally, projected to make like over $1 million the following year. Your liability of affecting you as an individual is much higher, right? And also the taxes coming to you directly, right? Naturally, we're talking about gross. But you need to report the whole gross that was paid to you, then what you paid out, and then you're going to have the net income, okay? So it's a big liability and big risk that you're doing. So strategically, sometimes it's good to take a step back, right, and then look at it like, okay, this is the goal. Hopefully I'm going to just set my head down and work hard. I got this opportunity, and if I work hard, possibility this thing's just going to take off. So plan that's going to happen, and ultimately you're going to bring that to fruition because, first of all, you're thinking positive, you're planning, you're working hard, and let's say in this particular instance or example I gave you, let's say you started LLC. Next thing you know, you're making $500,000, and then wow, next thing you know, second year I'm projected to make like $1 million, like gross, and I'm gonna be profiting, let's say $200,000, which is a lot of money. So you sit down and you're like, you know what? I'm a little scared because I'm making more money. I'm a different tax bracket. Bam! Guess what we got? I heard that I can do an entity classification change and don't need to apply for all my licenses or anything. Is this true? You ask your accountant. He's going to say, oh, yes, it is. What would you like? A C Corp or an S Corp? How would you want to change it to corporation, but you want to be taxed as an S Corp? And that's when you can say, well, can you explain to me the differences? And you're going to find what's going to work for you because you got to look at business and the structures is for you to grow, right? At the end of the day, we consume in this country, right? We're consumers. But we're also, as a capitalist society, tons of businesses and there's forums to get you to grow. So let's say it's LLC, you have the option to convert it to a corporation. Why? How do you think that option is there? Because people have been through what I'm telling you. They've realized like, okay, I started this way and I'm limited, I can't go nowhere else. No, you can start with LLC. You can then convert it with the IRS to a C Corp or S Corp corporation without changing those licenses, redoing everything all over again. And then once you see that it's going and keep growing and growing, naturally then you can choose to do your payroll hire. You have many other options. So like I wanted to cover these last couple of weeks, different businesses, and as we talked about a few weeks ago, the first one was LLC, then we talked about C Corp, S Corp, and this is sole proprietor. As I stated, just to give you a little bit of knowledge and for you guys to be hungry to search and make educated decisions on your business, okay? An educated decision is not just going to be like, he told me this and I'm going to do it. Even me telling you. Don't just listen to what I'm telling you. Research what I'm telling you. You can Google, put the pros and cons of LLCs versus corporations, C Corp versus S Corp. There's many different graphs and charts and things that you can see. And like I said, always go back to that. Speak with your, trusted financial advisor, accountant, lawyer, and you can make an educated decision on what's best for your business, okay? Because it isn't just like, I want to do this today and get this done. No, every cause has an effect. Every action has a reaction. So just bear in mind, like, I'm gonna open this business, but I'm gonna work hard, and if it grows and takes off, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to do something different. Does it make sense to start as a sole proprietor when you know a year later that you're gonna have to close this business licenses, apply for a corporation, get all the new licenses, new insurance, and this and that? Does that make sense? To put myself up to risk? Or am I cool with having myself this under my social security number with this risk? Okay? Or do I want to protect myself the best that I can and open a C Corp and not be connected to me at all, or be a pass-through entity? Or would I like to do W-2 and then ultimately get, a K-1 for the difference, because I have other business ventures of which I know I'm going to have a loss, which at the end of the day is going to balance out my business. So there's a lot of things that go into this, not just cut as dry as like, bam, I want to open this business, I'm open it, that's it. Like we talked about many videos ago, businesses, you need to know what in each industry, what could be right, what could go right, what could go wrong. Naturally from the gate, you want to have a solid structure and make sure your businesses are established correctly. Once you have that solid foundations, even biblical, you want to have that house that's like formed on a rock with a solid foundation, so that when the storms come, you're not going to just fall apart. The house is on sand. So thanks again for listening. Thanks again for trusting, my advice. And again, research. I always say, look, there's so much knowledge is out there that years ago it wasn't out there. You had to look at books. Even when I was learning and I do stuff by hand, use that Google, use this, so much information that's out there. Use it for good, to help you with your business. And again, at the end of the day, we want to have a good plan. We want to have the educated decisions that we make, what's best for you and your particular situation. So make sure when you are sitting down with your financial advisor, your accountant, lawyer, that you explain what you're doing. Not just, hey, I want to do this construction company. Be like, hey, as an example, per right now, my wife works a job, I have a full-time job. The goal is to start this business. I have this opportunity. I feel like it's going to take off, but until I get it growing up, I'm not going to leave my job because we have expenses to make. An example, right? Then he's going to be able to guide you and direct you a little bit more, right? Or, by the way, I have this one company, but on the side, I do like flipping houses. So sometimes, end of the year, we might have a loss or a gain. Explain to the person you're talking to, your trusted financial people, what you're doing, so that they can also help you out and help you, give you some good advice. Strong advice is going to be beneficial for you, okay? Again, thanks again for, listening and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Keep sending the messages, the likes, and the DMs. I will get to it as soon as I can. And the subject, like I said, if I know it, I'll speak on it. If I don't, my lawyer here to. All right, thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.